welcome to For the Love of Idents, the show where I talk about idents past and present from the UK and beyond. Today we're heading all the way back to 1987. Yes, 1987, for the ident of Yorkshire television. And this one in particular is called Liquid Gold. And without further ado, here is Liquid Gold, the ident from Yorkshire television from 1987. Wow, what a short, sweet ident. It is 8 seconds. How short and sweet. This was recently on TV, again, because you might remember this ident more recently for reruns of Yorkshire Television's version of the format, due to the fact that the format then being moved to the BBC, of Through the Keyhole. An excellent programme. Now, let's talk about the ident. So let's start off with the obvious elephant in the room, and that is the liquid gold. This is the gold that is referred to as liquid. Overall, before we go any further, I really much quite enjoyed the ident because I quite liked how the Y in the word Yorkshire was our key element throughout this piece. And you know it's a key element because you've got the whole Y bit here. And you know that that's key to the ecosystem of the ident itself. But if you go further, and you look further down, then you get to the whole Yorkshire television production area, and it becomes our logo. So our logo is the thing that was dipped in the liquid gold. The rest of it wasn't, but that was. It's short and sweet. The music is memorable. Probably not done that impression great. I never really do musical impressions that great, or impressions in general that great. And you look at it, and you see some of the key details. So, this is in our goldish colour. This, the word production, is also in our goldish colour. Sorry if you saw the logo for the show there. More in our liquid goldish colour. But then this, Yorkshire television, is in our standard greyish colour. I don't understand the blue in the background. I don't understand the blue. That might be the quality of this version of the ident I've got, whether or not that's supposed to be there or not. Or is that supposed to be like the sea? That's the only thing in the ident that confuses me. I don't get confused quite easily, but that confused me. And overall, I think that it being static for a few seconds, so from about 5 seconds, it stays static here. That is a perfect time out of 8 or so seconds for it to need voiceover continuity. Announcer can talk at this point. And what's good about idents that are so memorable, like Yorkshire television, like Granada, like Thames, like all the others, you end up having them dawned, put on to the programmes that they were on, so that you always remember that ident. And I just think that this is what I would call a beautiful piece of craftsmanship. 1987, technology, especially in the 3D realm, is still quite new. What I mean by that is that the technology is still in development, as in they're developing new techniques and new ways of doing this all the time. At that point, this still are now. They're trying to improve what we had. So having the 3D version of the V is something of a triumph. Not many could achieve what Yorkshire television has and did achieve. And what really gives the icing on the cake here for this is the fact that the V, if we zoom with the correct fingers, my apologies, you get the 3D element still there with this bit here. You still see your 3D elements, but overall, you're getting a pretty much a 2D view at this point, with a hint of a drop shadow, using a fancy technical term there, which just means there's a shadow in the background. That's all that word means in a giant, might I say, giant nutshell. And you can sort of see, well, the 3D element that was there, but now because they needed to keep it 2D. And I just think that works really well. And the more you watch it, the more you look at it, and the more you see, you can just appreciate how good it is. The music is memorable. The music is key. And I think that as a whole, helps the ident. And I think that it doesn't save it. That's a poor word of choice. But, because I don't think there's entirely anything wrong with the ident. I just think that you just have to look at it with the eyes of, will this be memorable? So what I mean by that is that when you look at childhood, and there must have been studies about this, but when you look at childhood, you have three things in the world of TV, might I say, because childhood's everything else, but for a majority, for TV, you've got the programs that you've watched, the programs your parents watched, the programs your siblings watched if you had siblings or cousins or other family members, and then you've got the TV theme tune and the ident music, because the theme tune at that time was all about you're in another room, you're making a cup of tea, or you're doing something, then you hear the theme tune for your program and you run in. The ident signifies a similar to not everyone, to a very large amount, but not enough to significantly say that in every documentary ever mentioned about the fact that we love TV theme tunes. And I think that the ident music needs to be more celebrated in general, because I love ident, as you know, because why else would I have made a program called For the Love of Idents? And so showing the passion I've got for this means that you have to be passionate about every element. I was going to fall off my chair there, I do apologise. You have to be passionate about every element of an ident. It's the 3D element, it's the colour scheme, it's the way it looks, and Yorkshire Television does that really well. So, for me, as a fan of idents, I have a criteria that I'm always after, and the criteria occasionally gets met. So, earlier, well, not earlier, but earlier, in a few years ago, 2022, BBC Alba, I do apologise, which is the BBC Scottish Gaelic channel, that had one of the three elements that I loved about Idents. It had the beautiful scenery and the beautiful music. That's one of the same in that instance, because you couldn't really judge it upon anything else. Then you have the Thames Television, and for me, Thames Television is memories, and it reminds you of watching Sooty, it reminds you of watching Rainbow, it reminds you of watching Butter Moon, it reminds you of watching Count Duckula, all these things it reminds you of was kept with the Thames Television. And then you have LGBT, and it reminds you of all the sitcoms and all the dramas and a lot of things you're watching at that point. And I think for Yorkshire Television, other than it being helped by the fact that it gets shown all the time now, because Through the Keyhole gets repeated quite often on Challenge, it helps to reiterate that you might have a lot of memories of this ident, but we're going to push it to the limit, because we love Through the Keyhole. Do do do, through the keyhole. Do 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 do. They love it. And so the Yorkshire TV ident works really well. I think it's amazing, and I don't think you can go wrong with it. As we've seen already in this episode, you have to look at it from the point of view of the time it was created. If you look at it now in 2025, you think that is awful. really, if you weren't like me, if you weren't a fan of the Idents and weren't interested in Ident past and present from the UK and beyond, you'd be like, oh, that's awful, terrible, terrible, that is terrible, boo, boo, get a better Ident, boo. And the people that are looking at it now probably don't really know much about TV history. But looking at it from a lens of, you have to bear in mind it was 1987. It's an achievement in itself for being it's an achievement for it being created in 1987. So I think that it's gorgeous. I'm going to reiterate some of my points here, due to the fact that I loved the Ident, and at this point I have to make it clear that the liquid gold is a stroke of genius, because the idea, because the logo of Yorkshire Television, and I apologise, was always a Y, right? Y for Yorkshire. So what are you gonna do with that information to try and create a new 3D ident, trialing out the 3D elements? Whether or not they were computerized or physically done, I don't know that bit, because a lot of the 2 idents for BBC 2, a lot of the physical big 2s were physically done. So practically it is the term we use. So I don't know whether or not it's digital or practical, but what I do know, and what I'll always know, is that it deserves what it gets. It's praise. And I think that it rising from the liquid is the best bit. I've got to say, if I've got a favourite bit in the Ident, I can't say the music because that's throughout, and I don't really want to say the still image at the end. I want to say the beginning bit when the V arises through the liquid. I think, personally, and you can disagree if you want, I think personally that is one of the best bits of that. I have got to admit, when looking at every Yorkshire TV ident that exists, I think 1987, especially the one we've been reviewing today, is by far their best ident they've ever done. I know you're going to disagree with me, I know there's going to be an argument based on that, but I think that it deserves all the praise I'm giving it. I just think that the curvature of the Y, the typeface, is easily read. It's understandable, and when you look at it within the colour scheme, it's not too in your face, it's not too dull, it's enough to say, I know this might not look great quality in the future, because we didn't do it in HD, because HD didn't exist, but it'll still look as nice, and it'll still look as HD as it did before, and it'll always look amazing and gorgeous and brilliant. And you can't argue with that. Well, you could, but I'm not going to, because I think the idents need to be celebrated, past, present, future, and from the UK and beyond. You need to just keep the excitement going. You need to make sure that it's got everything it wants. You need to make sure that it's brilliant. And that's one of the key things that needs to happen. And you can obviously do whatever you want with that information, but the more we attempt to try and make it better, the more we improve, experiment, the more that technology moves on. And with having a 3D element with the Y, you help move technology forward in the realms of ident, because you have TV productions, you have film production, music video productions, you have ident productions. It's an element that needs to be more appreciated and needs to be more talked about openly. And that's what I try to do with For the Love of Idents. And I know that many other people try to do the same and talk about their favourite idents and try and review idents from different aspects of everything. But there we have it. Another brilliant episode For the Love of Idents. Bye bye!